and turn on the transcript. Okay, now we have 13 participants. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, I'm opening a CIPS principal marker report for L4M1, and the most recent report is on May exam, and you may see you can read the topic from this report. For example, for question 1 in the May exam, we have the benefits of supply chain management approach. The second question will be on benefits of having an accurate specification. It has two parts. One is about the benefits of having accurate specification, and second one is about effective supply selection. Third question of this exam series on the centralized and decentralized procurement system. And finally, we have a question on the impact of objectives of the third sector organization on procurement. I will analyze how you should answer this type of question later in the revision. But before that, I would like to help you on how to prepare for a CI exam. Okay, let's check the difference between our exam and CI exam. As you know, in level 4, our exam has 60 questions, and because of the plentiness of the question, then they will generally ask you about every topic possible in the book. So in our exam, you must study wide, and but not too deep about any topic. But in CI exam, the method is different. Instead of 60, you only have 4, and these 4 questions is very specific on the topic, and the topic within each question is not very broad, but very narrowly focused. For example, instead of asking not general topic like the impact, let me try my best. Instead of asking about how procurement can add the value in into an organization, they can ask you what are the impacts of the 5 rights, or how to achieve the 5 rights. This type of question tend to be specific, and in OISM, you may have scenario to analyze and link your knowledge to the scenario, how to solve the problem within the scenario. So with such type of question, how should we answer them? As I indicate here, to answer a CR question, you should have a structured way. First, we don't approach directly to the problem, but we should have an opening and introduce into the problem. Like they ask you about the supply chain management approach in procurement, then you must show them what are the possible supply chain management in procurement, like just in time, like vendor manage inventory, like lean principle, etc. What are the possible approaches into procurement? And after that sentence or paragraph, you try to solve the problem introduced in the question. Let's come back to the question like the benefits of supply chain management approach in procurement. Then after introducing about them, you start saying about their benefits and why do they have such benefit. And finally, if the question has no scenario, your job is giving example to demonstrate your points. And if the question has a scenario, then your job is to link the scenario to your answer, or link your answer to the scenario. Like, let's come back to the question benefits of supply chain management. Then if they have a scenario, then you answer they will give this benefit, they will give that benefit, and go back to the scenario, seeing whether the organization in the question has applied this approach or not. Then you will write, if they, for example, they don't apply the approaches, then you write that if they apply this approach, then the result will be higher, for example. So that is the approach to a question, and this way to answer a CR question will maximize your point and maximize your chance of passing the exam. If you follow our website and social account, you may know that we have a list of topics for L4M1, and we have published it on our website at en.evocurement.edu.vn. You see here, we make a list of topics that we can achieve from CIPS website. You may go to this web page and see a list of topics. In this slide, I give it into short form, and you may see the different topic we have here. For question 1, which is equivalent to chapter 1, the most common topic is the fire rights. Then other topic like compare between different type of purchase. And we see a thing here, SCM, the benefits or the supply chain management approach in procurement. And finally, we have the approach to stakeholder management, how to manage stakeholder within an organization. The second chapter evolve around the procurement cycle. And beside that, we have different type of electronic system. Finally, there is a part that I think will be very hard for the students, the needs of having a structured sourcing process and the relationship between the compliance to the process and the outcomes. This part has in the book is only described in about 3 or 4 pages, and in the exam, the question regarding this tend to be very complex. And as I know from my exam, some students complain that the exam is on question number 2 is extremely difficult, and they don't even understand what CIPS is asking about. The third chapter focuses on management and governance of procurement function. You may see here, first one is about the importance of governance. What will be the factors that have effective governance? Second one is about the policies with the procurement. The third one about ILO convention and ERP system like its characteristic and the use of such system. Finally, we have a question on the structure of procurement function like centralized or decentralized. The fourth question focuses on different sectors within the economy. And normally they ask you about sector like public, how the objective or the characteristic of a sector that have impact, how do they impact on procurement. For example, private sector have the objective to earn profit. So what is the impact on the procurement? Procurement should do what to ensure to achieve that objective? And finally, we have a question, small question on retail and comparing between the procurement in retail and procurement in manufacturing. It should be manufacturing, not manufacturing. Okay, the next part of this revision will focus on each topic, and I will have you to identify the type question that you may see and how to address them. Fire rights. Okay, the first topic I want to talk here is fire right. And normally this topic is very familiar to you. Of course, we all know what the fire right is. And the question here is often does not only ask you to list the fire right, but analyze the added value of the fire rights. The question about added value of the fire right is very common, and the most effective approach here, yeah, of course, we should have opening paragraph. And second, when talking about added value of the fire right, you must define the rights before you saying what do they contribute to the bottom line of the organization. And third, what happens if any of the right is not achieved? So for example, we have a question on analyze the added value of the fire right to the organization. So first we define what the fire right is. And second, when we talk about each right, we say first what right quality. What is right quality? And what is the benefit of achieving right quality? And what is the consequence of not achieving right quality? That's the most effective, that's the most comprehensive approach to this question. Besides that, you may add the point on how do you achieve the right, that type right in an organization in your procurement activities. For example, with right quality, we achieve that from defining correctly the needs and produce a high quality specification, a detailed specification. Or about the right time, we achieve that by correctly planning and define the needs correctly. Okay, this slide sum up my point about the fire rights. And to maximize to leverage the book from other study guide, you should read L4M1 study guide, and in part 1.4 they have very specific guidance on how to achieve each right. You may see here I has marked the page number from 48 to 59. These pages are very helpful for you to answer this question correctly. Okay, that's the paragraph. And the next topic is about direct and indirect spends. About this question, it tends to be about the comparison between direct and indirect. And to compare, yes, of course, we have difference right from the definition. Yes, I see that Victoria Mwamba raising her hand. So can you speak your concern?
Sorry, I just wanted you to project the page on the 5 right. I was just taking some notes. I wanted to take note of the page number.
Okay. Let's come back here. And note that this page from F6, not F1. My experience is that you should take other module first. You should read all other module first before sitting F1 and F8, because F1 and F8 is like summarizing the knowledge from other modules.
Thank you.
Yeah. And second, if you want to take note, please do it quickly. Or you may rewatch my recorded video on YouTube. Let's not disrupt the session with just taking note. Okay, come back with direct and indirect spend. Sorry. The question here tends to be the comparison between direct and indirect. And what should we compare? First, of course, is the definition of direct and indirect. Second, the contribution of direct and indirect to the outcome of an organization. And of course, when we talk about direct and indirect, we often focus on manufacturing companies or retail companies. Normally we don't talk about direct spend and indirect spend in public sector or third sector. Normally we talk direct and indirect in private sector. So let's come back to the question. One point you should compare here is the contribution of direct and indirect spend to the outcome of an organization. For example, if in an manufacturing organization, direct spend will contribute to the final quality of the product. And moreover, direct spend is the cost of goods sold, and it may have impact on the gross profit of that organization. So managing direct spend well in manufacturing or in retail is very important, because it impacts on the quality of the product of the final product, and second, it contributes to the revenue and the profit of the organization. On the other hand, indirect spend also play a role here. It ensures the normal operation and other activities of the organization. And sometimes indirect spend may have impact on the quality, like training of the staff. Normally is indirect spend, but if that activity is well done, then it will also contribute to the quality of the final service or product of the organization. Or if normally we consider machinery or rental is indirect, but it can impact on the productivity of the organization. And the third point you can leverage here is to use Porter's value chain model to stress or to emphasize on the difference between direct and indirect. For example, Porter value chain have two major group of activities, including primary activities and secondary activity. Primary activity like operation, inbound logistics, about logistics, sale and marketing, and after sales service are considered as often have linkage to direct spend, and secondary activities will have linkage to indirect spend. The third topic is also about the comparison between different types of expense. Here we have capital and operational. To compare, we have a lot of aspects to compare. First, about the purpose of Capex and Opex. Capex is about to apply something to generate money. And Opex is just about ensure the day-to-day operation of the organization. And the rest of the point is about the difference in procurement activity. Like with Capex project, we tend to apply total cost of ownership to this type purchase, because it is often the big purchase, and the outcome, the net present value, the cash flow from this type investment will have link to total cost of ownership. And normally Opex is kind of small purchase of small expense, and normally we don't use PCO here. About defining the needs of Capex, like building a house or purchasing new machinery, we have very highly difficult and technical specification. So with Capex, the specification will be harder to produce and require team approach to write the specification. On the other hand, Opex item like materials or indirect spend like stationery is kind of very simple and standardized. So normally specification is not very hard to produce. Since Capex is more complex, so it has the involvement of a wider range of stakeholders, and Capex is very costly, so it needs the approval sometimes from senior management, and therefore the involvement of stakeholder is more stark here, is more strong here. Capex also have difficult negotiation because we have a lot of variable in Capex project. And finally, we have different other features for to compare between Capex and Opex. Like Capex project tend to very costly, so an organization may have to lend money from the bank to finance this purchase. Another question of comparison is about the difference between purchasing service and purchasing product. Okay, regarding this and other question for comparison, I should note that we should know some keywords that help us to identify which question is about comparison. Okay, if the normally we have the command word in OR question, sorry, in CR question, like analyze, describe, or explain. And we also have a command word on comparison is just normally compare. And but normally I don't see any question with command word compare in the exam, but they tend to have a word like this: analyze the distinctive features of something. They often use a phrase like this. And since we are talking about distinctive feature, so we are saying about the difference between it and something else. For example, if they are asking you about analyze the distinctive feature of direct spend, then we are talking about distinctive feature of direct spend in comparison with indirect spend. And otherwise, distinctive features of service, then we know that we should compare it to the product. So this is a way to identify whether this question is comparison or not, is about comparison or not. Okay, come back to this question, the difference between service and product. Of course, we all see the picture here. Service is intangible, service delivery is heterogeneous. Service cannot be owned. Service is perishable. It produced and then consumed at the right when it is consumed, right when it is produced. And service is inseparable from its provider. And if you want to maximize your point on this question, you must analyze the relationship between this feature and its impact on procurement activity. Because service is intangible, then you must define the requirement for service very carefully. And for service, because it has no dimension or no color to describe, then normally in service we use performance specification. We state about the outcome of the service rather than describe how to do it and what is its features. Because the service is heterogeneous, so we should choose the provider very carefully, because each provider will have different quality, service quality. So we should choose the one who has capability to deliver it in the right quality. Because service is perishable, so you need to identify the correct time when you need it. When you need the service, and because service is perishable, so the question here is how to preserve the information, because the service provider delivering the service to you, so he knows some of your secret. So and that knowledge is inseparable from him. So you need to have some kind of confidentiality between you and the provider. Okay. Come back to service and product. I see a question on heterogeneous. Hello, can you distinguish between heterogeneous versus homogeneous? Homogeneous here means everything is the same. And heterogeneous means the things are different. And let's explain in more common knowledge. We have heterosexual versus homosexual. Yeah, come back here. Hetero, this is very kind of very private, but it explains the root of hetero and homo. Heterosexual like man and women, men like women, or women like men. But homosexual like man like man, or woman like woman. So hetero here means opposite or very different from in characteristic, and homo here is homo here means that it is very similar, or yeah, very similar, or is or very inseparable. Okay, thank you. Okay, I now explain how to solve the question. How to solve the question in March exam. Actually, the sorry, my exam, May 2021. The benefits of adopting supply chain management approach in procurement. So first, we need to identify the approach in supply chain approach in procurement. I have five approaches here. You may see that, and please take quick note on this. Just in time, VA and VE, lean and agile, supplier partnership, and TQM. All of them are the supply chain management approaches. And each of them will have different benefits to procurement. For example, just in time will help you to minimize the inventory or the stock. VIVE will help you to improve the quality of the product without compromising the cost, without rising the cost. Lean and agile also help you to lower the cost. Partnership will help you to lower the cost and improve the quality and improve the service. TQM will help you to stabilize the quality, etc. All of them will help you to increase the overall profit of the organization. And to know about these approaches, I strongly recommend you to visit other modules before taking L4M1 exams. And finally, in chapter 1, we have a question on stakeholder management. Normally, this type of question in F1 exam will have a scenario, and they will ask you to identify the way to manage, the way to categorize and manage the stakeholder within that scenario. And the most important model here is Mendel's matrix. I will not explain again what Mendel's matrix is, and you must learn by heart this matrix before sitting the exam. I think that I should skip this and prioritize some other topic. This topic is well explained in the study guide, so you should read it, and it's not too long. Just the application of a model to a given scenario. It tend to be like simple, and student are likely to get high grade for this question. When we come to the second chapter, the one thing to focus here is procurement cycle. You should focus on procurement cycle, and I explain a way to learn by heart the cycle by dividing the cycle into 3 subphases. Three subphases. The first phase, I will call it pre-tendering. What we do before advertising the needs to the supplier. We have defined needs and develop a draft specification, market analysis, draft a plan, and testing the market. We should do this before sending the documentation, before sending the invitation tender or the request for quotation to the external supplier. The second phase, I would call it tendering, from developing the documentation and then supplier selection, like sending the PQQ and pre-qualify the supplier. Then sending tender documents like invitation to tender, the contract draft, KPI, SLA, and other documents. Then getting the evaluate, the bid, and contract award, and negotiation, post tender negotiation before contract award too. The third phase will be called post contract award, with receipt, with contract performance, with relationship management, and access management. This division will help you to remember the cycle better. In the exam, the question here can come with many forms. The most simple form is about a few phases within this cycle, like describe 3 steps or 3 stages with pre-contract award, within pre-contract award, or 3 stages post-contract award. And to that question, the answer tend to be quite simple. You only need to describe what we do, what procurement do in that stage. The second type of question would be on the importance of stage, like what is the added value of defining detailed specification, or what is the added value of good supplier management, a good supplier relationship management, or the value of good contract management. Regarding the added value, you should read the table from page 90 to page 92 of L4M1 study guide. Though the book is not very long on this, you may add your points and from your experience as well as from other modules to write longer. Electronic system is a kind of question that you may very commonly meet in the exam. The question tends to be about describe or explain the use of the system within procurement. And your job is to at least know some of the system if you have never used them. For example, what is the use of e-requisition or the use of e-sourcing, what they can do. And if you have experience with this system, then give the example within the question. These systems tend to be very simple and very straightforward. You may read from the book and at least remember about their use. And finally, in chapter 2, this part tends to very difficult for students. The relationship between compliance to the process and the outcome. When I say about the relationship, when I say about relationship, it tends to be two-way. Compliance can improve the outcome, or the compliance can have some negative impact on the outcome. And your job, your writing here should be on both aspects. If the question is about, normally is about the relationship. For example, compliance and the outcome will have some benefits. The compliance to the process will have some benefits to the outcome, like it will help to train the newcomer, or it will have to have better audit trail and better transparency to the supplier, or better transparency and higher trust to other internal stakeholder. But too rigid compliance will hamper the activities, like we will slow down the activity and may miss the opportunity. Rigid compliance will also likely to hamper innovation and creativity. Yeah, I have some key point on the compliance and the outcome. This point is not indicated, are not indicated from the book, but this point my experience, my own opinion on the topic. And I also consult the previous paper and the principal market report on the topic. In May 2022, some students get the question that they don't understand, but I don't have any idea what the question they mean. The only thing they indicate here is that it's about the relationship between the compliance and the outcome. And if I remember not wrong, then the question is about no, the conflict. Yeah, the conflict. Five sources of conflict between compliance and the outcome. But to ensure the correction, I need to see the principal market report, and let me try to produce a possible answer to that question. In May 2022, students complained a lot about the difficulty of the question number 2. I hope that in July then you will meet some question that you already know and write correctly. Okay, let's continue with chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about the governance procurement function, and there's a question that you may see in the exam, but it has barely covered in the study guide. Actually, I think that it comes from the previous study guide, the previous qualification. The question here is about the barriers to good governance. We are talking about the good governance in procurement, and the question is about what can hamstring the good governance in procurement. And the barrier here tend to be more on the relationship with other stakeholders and within procurement and with other stakeholders, like a support from the senior management can be a barrier, or like support from other stakeholders, or the poor infrastructure from the poor infrastructure, the poor IT infrastructure, or ambiguous policies, procedures, and guidance or manuals will be a barrier to good governance in procurement. Like a resource, like human resources or financial, will also be a barrier. And the conflict between different procurement personnel will also be a barrier to good governance. When I say about good governance, it means about the structure and the responsibility of each position. All of them will be covered in policy and procedure and guidance from well-defined position. And good governance tend to produce positive outcome for procurement. In chapter 3, there's a very commonly met question, commonly met topic on sectorized and decentralized structure. This type of question is extremely common both in the previous qualification and in current qualification. And because it is very common and it is well covered in the study guide, so I only want to describe the type question here. They only ask you about the advantages and disadvantages of each type of structure. And since it is very simple, so you must not only write some key point, but explain it in your own word. Example. And before that, remember to have an opening paragraph. Briefly describe the centralization and decentralization of procurement function. Recently, there are some questions of chapter 3 on the areas of policy within procurement. This is also covered in the book. And previously, when this question is asked, it tends to the feedback is very poor on the answer. Student does not very focus on this topic, but it may come to your exam, so you must prepare. The policy has about four areas to cover, like the responsibility of procurement personnel, like what the senior buyer do, what contract manager do, what category manager do, yeah, etc. And there's some policies on the competition within the procurement activities, like how to ensure the competition in invitation to tender or in request for quotation. There are policy on sourcing process, like the stage you need to do when you are doing an ITT or an IFQ. And also the process, there are policy on process for invoice or for paying the invoice. Also, there are some policy on transparency on gift and hospitality, on the on anti-bribery or on conflict of interest. This topic is covered in the study guide. In chapter 3, I don't remember the page, and I don't have the study guide here. But you can open that and see the areas of policy. They have even very detailed. And at ILO conventions recently also become a question in F1 sorry, F1. The previous one is from November 2021. Let's come back to the principal market report. Yeah, November. See the question covered the international labor organization, which is mentioned in assessment criteria for 3.2. It's linked to a scenario. There's not much information here, but from my from one of our students is about the application of ILO in the given scenario, and they tend to ask the role of these convention, how to improve, how to improve the standard of the supplier regarding labor. Please remember that L has some core conventions on labor, including the ban or the forbidden forced labor or the child labor, or on minimum age labor, and on equal remuneration payment like men and women must be paid the same, must be paid the same. So the question here tend to be on the role of IO on improving the labor condition of a supplier. You don't need to remember all of the core convention, but at least you need to remember each topic is a key area to address. So IO convention. So in chapter 3, we tend to have very few questions, few topics to cover. Chapter 2 and chapter 3 tend to have fewer topics to cover. And chapter 1 has the most topics, but that it does not mean that chapter 3 or 2, 3 or 4 is easier. Normally, chapter 1 is a better score in the exam. The 3 latter is kind of very poorly, no, not very poorly, but kind of less success than chapter 1. And in chapter 4, we focus on different sectors within the economy. What they want to ask here is about the impact of each sector on procurement activity. Like in public sector, they ask you about the impact of public sector objective on procurement, or the impact of regulations on procurement. Also, in private sector, they ask you about the impact of objective like earning profit or winning market share, or contributing to CSR, corporate social responsibility, or the impact of relevant regulation on procurement. In first sector, the kind question is very much the same, but we know that since the objective of each sector is different, so the answer to this question will be very different. For example, let me demonstrate how to answer a question on public sector. We see that I'm listing the feature of public sector and the impact of this feature on procurement. For example, public sector has higher public accountability. It means procurement must very transparent on their process and activities. So, what is the impact of this feature on procurement? Public accountability means that the procurement must be transparent about how they select the supplier. They must, for example, they must identify the criteria for selection before sending the ITT. And when they assess or they assess and qualify or evaluate the bid, then they must very transparent and publish it on the public journal. Public sector also require the compliance to the standardized process, so procurement must have good knowledge of the process in public sector, in regulation and in statute. The quality is also a concern in public sector, so the procurement here must have some knowledge of relevant standards like in health safety, in product safety, and the application of these standards to the relevant project. Public sector also require value for money, so you need to have a correct specification before running for tender, and must be ensured for competition between suppliers. And private sector must have some kind of accountability and competition. So the relationship with the supplier in public sector, it tend to shallower and not as deep as in private sector, because it need to have transparency, not private deal with the supplier. So the relationship is more kind of arm's length. And furthermore, in public sector, you cannot sign a very long-term contract with a supplier to ensure the competition. So in public sector, you can only sign a framework agreement for the duration of 2 or 3 years, or in some country 5 years maximum. So the relationship with the supplier is not very deep and meaningful as in the private sector. Regarding the impact of private sector on procurement, we have different objectives, and each objective will have different impact. And regarding this area, they don't ask you what generally as for public or third sector, but they can ask you about the impact of only one objective, like the impact of earning profit to procurement. And this is an example from this type question. Explain the way in which procurement can contribute to objective like increase the profit or expand the market share. It means that you must list or explain some action that procurement can do to achieve this objective. For example, to increase the profit. To increase profit, what we should do? To increase profit, we must have good quality and affordable product. What we can do, what procurement can do to achieve these objectives? We can some kind of value engineering, or adopting some cost saving method like lean, like Janita, or we can produce good quality specification. There are many other ideas, and this question tend to be very specific. So you must have good knowledge of procurement. And as I advise, you should study other modules before come back to L4M1. So your answer will be very detailed and very specific, and will get the maximum points. Here, please note that this question means that you must have some idea on the action procurement, not just about the objective of procurement. And regarding third sector, the question is very similar. What are the objectives of third sector organization, and what are the impact of these objectives on the third sector? For example, third sector organization will have an objective of raising awareness of something like protecting the wildlife. So what is the impact of that objective to procurement? let's say I'm looking for an organization that promotes the benefit of the animal. So to maximize the awareness of the public, I should not purchase something that is made from animal product like leather, and that will the alignment between the action and your objective will be likely to have better public image and increase your organization image to the public. Or tester will have tester will have revenue from donation from the other people. So tester will have the donor can have some condition for receiving donation. So interceptor, when procurement receiving something from other, you should have policy on gift and hospitality. Like if they contribute this one, we can receive it with gratitude, but we cannot do anything for you. Sorry, we cannot do whatever you ask, but we can do in our scope, within our scope, etc. That is a feature of policy of the third sector, and it may have impact on procurement activity. About we also have question on the impact and on the impact of regulation on procurement activity within some sectors. You may see here I have listed some regulations, some common regulation in public and private sector. In public sector, we have statute or we have regulation on public accountability. What you should when you should publish your information on the tender. We have regulation on product quality, on the safety of the construction, or something else. We also have regulation on process, like we should only use open tendering or restricted tendering for some kind of purchase, for example. And we have regulation on competition. It's like we only organize the tender when we have at least 2 or 3 attendees or participants. In private sector, we also have regulations like for consumer protection. What customer can do when they are dissatisfied with the product. We have regulation on the quality of some kind of product, like the helmet or the electricity or the applique on appliance on electric appliance in your house. It has quality. It has regulation on health and safety. And in private sector, we also have regulation on competition, but it's very different from public sector. On competition here, it means to limit the power of monopoly and oligopoly. On competition in private sector is about maximize the competition in tendering or RFQ process. Although I write here only competition, but it has different meaning in each sector in the regulation in each sector. And finally, we have a question on which is not mentioned in the book about the difference between procurement in retail and procurement in manufacturing. I have made my point here. Retail and manufacturing has many aspects of differentiation. In retail, we purchase for resale. So you only purchase mostly finished product. But in manufacturing, you purchase material or component to produce something else. So in manufacturing, the supplier relationship tend to be very deep with the supplier because component and material may have extreme impact on the quality of the output. But in retails, the finished product is largely not much different from between the supplier. So and furthermore, in retail, in something like FMCG, like soft drink, we only have Coca-Cola or Pepsi or other manufacturer or the big manufacturer. So their quality is not very much different, but their brand. So the relationship here tend to be shallow. For Capex category, in retail, you mostly invest in store and warehouse. But in manufacturing, we invest in a lot of things like plant, machinery, warehouse, or maintenance. In retail, the lead time tend to be shorter because we only take the finished product. And of course, in manufacturing, we have longer lead time because they need to produce things. So they may need to wait for the supplier to finish the components. In retail, inventory management can be very complex due to a large number of items. And they may apply different way to manage the inventory. And most notably, you may see it when you come to a supermarket. They often use barcoding. In manufacturing, to minimize the cost of holding inventory, they often use just-in-time. But currently, due to disruption of COVID-19, just-in-time is largely ignored by many, even by its creator is Toyota. They scrap just-in-time they come back with the doctrine of just-in-case. They purchase more for safety stock. So these are my brief revision of L4M1. I hope that you, from my revision, you have the idea how to answer the question, and I have also review on some key topics within the modules. So I hope that you will get the best result in the next exam. Now is the time for question. If you have any question, please turn on the micro or put it to us by typing it in the chat. Yeah, please, Coffee What? Can you turn on the mic or typing in the chat box?
Hi, thank you. You mentioned your YouTube channel.
Yes, we upload the recording to YouTube channel. You will find it by typing Evocurement, our company name.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other question? Do you have any difficulty in understanding the book content or study guide part? please remember that we provide this class for free. So if you want to support us, please support by purchasing our practice test on Udemy. And for CR questions, Udemy does not support that format. So we have to do it on our own website. Come to our website at en.evocurement.edu.vn, and at the sidebar you will see the different practice question for for CIPS like L4M1 and L4M1. Yeah, Victoria, do you have any question?
I was just checking Udemy. I didn't find any module for L4M1 and M8. Have you got something there now?
No, not on Udemy, but on our website. Or do you want to ask for the book?
I'll just check the website for.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I have a question from Mamunoke. Sorry, Mamunoke. You may see this type of question in from the experience of other students. So let's try to answer this question about the regulation and implementation. Okay, sure. Let's come back to the regulation within public sector. Hello, Mamukone. I have listed the regulation of public sector here. And you may see that you are stressing on the regulation on the process. And depending on the country, we often have different law on public procurement. Normally, those statute will be on the what kind of process you will use in public sector in certain case. For example, every country in the world will have public regulation on open tendering and restricted tendering, and they often has financial threshold to use the process. Otherwise, there are also the case when the specification is cannot exactly defined. So we have some kind of request for proposal process, and each country will have different regulation on that. But generally, to answer that question, let's come back to your question. Okay, on competition. How to maximize the competition here. I need to know the question in detail to guidance to write guidance on how to answer. Let's assume that. Open a new slide. Let's assume that the question is explain the impact of competition regulation in public sector procurement. I just assume. I cannot know what exactly your question is. So first you need to explain. I know. It's very in the group we often have the experience from other students, and they because of the impact of the exam on their psychology, so they cannot remember exactly what the question is. But let's assume this question like this. The question look like this. Then my point here is that we should have some kind of structure to approach. First, I will explain what is the how competition is regulated in public sector. Like in my country, my country is Vietnam. In my country, there's no requirement on minimum number of suppliers to open a tender. Even one supplier is enough for open tendering. But in other country, we need at least they may need at least 3 or 2 or some bigger number of suppliers to open a tender. So I want to explain here how is it regulated in your public sector regulation. Like it mentioned in Public Procurement Act or law, depending on the country. And second, we explain how procurement apply this principle. By defining the need, you try to avoiding naming the brand within the specification, so that you can maximize maximize the number of suppliers. And furthermore, you can use standard so that we have maximum number of suppliers. Second, you can advertise to the public through official journal in procurement and other methods. This is a requirement, but you may also have public or advertise it on your website or on your social media account. And third, let me try to explain something else, not just these 2 points. Public sector regulations and implementation in procurement process. Now, this is too ambiguous for me to answer. Let's assume that this question like this, the question like this, and I need to identify another way. Yeah, you can use e-auction in public procurement, so that everything is transparent and maximize the competition. Yeah, you may have other idea. By now, due to shortness of time, I already produced the 3 points. And remember to put an example or link to the scenario. I will try to answer the question when I see the principal market report from CIPS on their website. I hope that my guidance here will help you to adapt to the question better. Thank you for posting your question here. Yeah, Okay, sorry, I can, yeah, Mamukone. Okay. I hope that my explanation satisfies you. Is there any other question on this topic? Okay, if there is no other questions, so I think that I should finish here and remember to prepare for the exam. I hope that you all of you will get the best result in the exam and get your diploma soon. We will host other revision class before the exam, so let's wait on let's join our discussion group on Facebook and wait for the latest announcement. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed your week